For Module 2, we are covering laws that affect education. So I'm going to talk about Malaysia today. Malaysia was under British rule for 113 years. A lot of people immigrated to Malaysia that were Chinese and Indian. And the British mandated that they were educated under their own native tongue, but that they still learned some English so that they could communicate as a medium. However, it was not mandatory in their own individual education. The earliest form of education started during the 5th century when the British occupied Malaysia. The British decided, okay, since we have Chinese and Indian foreign workers coming here and building stuff, and we already have the locals who are Malay, we don't want to upset anyone, so they can have their own schools and they can speak in their native tongue in their schools. So with that, it is called the vernacular system. Malaysia eventually gained their own independence. However, Malaysians really wanted their education to be in local Malay, so they had riots. The Prime Minister of 1960 decided that Malay should be compulsory for first and secondary education. So he implemented the Education Act of 1961, making Malay language the medium language for education. The education system had not been updated till the 90s, and then another policy came in which was called PPSMI. Basically, that policy stated that maths and sciences are mandatorily taught in English. The problem with PPSI is that most students were first-time learners of English at school, which impaired their learning abilities. Children living in the rural areas were less likely to get exposure using English compared to urban living children. Both teachers and students are not proficient in the language, so they had language barriers. Teachers were taught and learned how to teach Bahasa Malay, but they often found that they were misguiding students with English terms and usages. They were not confident enough to teach English. They were more comfortable teaching in Malay. And students were more comfortable speaking in their own languages. The other subjects are still being taught in Malay, so you've only got 2 subjects in English. And urban students preferred to use it more than those in rural areas. PPSMI is a current policy that's still running today. The problem with that is it doesn't work. It contradicts with the vernacular system. Imagine going to school and only learning 2 subjects in English or Malay. English being the main medium for only 2 subjects, and then you learn your school in your native tongue, whichever school that your parents have placed you in, depending on your native language. And essentially, it doesn't even carry over to university because most universities are 100% in English anyways. So it doesn't make sense. Creative writing class who was really brilliant. I never had to correct her grammar, barely. Like maybe sometimes she would miss a punctuation mark, but that rarely happened. And then one day she came to me and she was like, hey look, my teacher was correcting my paper and she keeps saying that I keep making grammar errors and the punctuation marks that I'm placing are in the wrong placement and I'm just not doing my sentence structures properly. So I asked her to show me her paper, and so she showed me some of her work and examples of the marking, and then I realized that her teacher wasn't a native English speaker, and actually she had been teaching her paper from English or from Chinese to English, so she was translating as a Chinese speaker, and she attended Chinese school. So this is an example of a common problem that you would face. Unfortunately, it did affect her grades for the entire year. And although she deserved to excel in her education, she was being held back. So basically, this is what their schedule would look like at school and at home. So they speak their native tongue at home, they go to school, they speak their native tongue at school for subjects 1 and 2, they have their English taught class in their native tongue or Malay, and then math and science is taught in English. Conversing language outside was a little bit confusing. It's either the native tongue or Bahasa Malay, but essentially it was just confusing. Any law mandating a medium language that only applies to 2 subjects whilst having a vernacular system really contradicts, and it confuses, I think, pretty much anyone who's being educated currently in the school system. The positive aspect of PPSMI is that it is a step in the right direction because it is implementing English. Unfortunately, it's only in 2 subjects, so it's not the right policy. Essentially, I just think that they need to learn all subjects in English because that's where they're going with headed in university anyways. And then they have the option to learn their native language as a secondary language since they're already speaking it at home. I enjoyed covering this topic with you. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Bye.